Hey, everybody, welcome back to Athens. Welcome back to DawgNation. Welcome back to Towers Take, brought to you by Marco's Pizza, America's #1 pizza company. Marco's has awesome pizza, and they're ready right now if you call them, or better yet, if you go to their website, which is really a handy way to do it. They will deliver a pizza to you possibly before this broadcast or podcast, whatever you want to call it, is over. Hello, everybody. My name is Chip Towers. I work for DawgNation.com. You can get your DawgNation app on your smartphone, and I would suggest you do this weekend because there's a lot of stuff coming at you. Man, there's been a lot coming at you all year. There's been a lot coming at us. There's been a lot coming at the Georgia Bulldogs, but at the end of the day, very few people have been able to bring them down. In fact, only Auburn so far, and then Georgia avenged that defeat a couple of weeks later in the SEC championship game. They earn a berth into the college football playoff semifinals for the first time in school history. They get into the Rose Bowl, no less, for the first time in 3/4 of a century. And they won 54-48 in double overtime over #2 ranked Oklahoma. First time the two teams have ever played in. Well, if you read my Towers take on DawgNation.com, you know that it was probably the best game I've ever covered. Where Georgia was involved, certainly for everything that it meant, but forgetting what all it meant, which is just to advance to this week to play Alabama in the national championship. But it was a great game. Had everything you could possibly want. Had the Heisman Trophy winner showing why he won the Heisman Trophy, at least in the first half, Baker Mayfield. And a lot of Georgia people are much more aware now of a running back by the name of Rodney Anderson than they were going into that game. Unbelievable chain of events leads to Georgia getting a late field goal and making a 17-point lead, a 14-point lead right before halftime. Incredible series of plays there that OU fans are still bemoaning today. You want to see some upsettedness, go to some of those OU talk boards and see how they think about squib kicks. Probably the same way that Georgia fans think about squib kicks. And then just an unbelievable second half, as Georgia has been all year in the second half. Is that right here? Yeah. Georgia outscoring their opponents 154-27 in the third quarter this season, y'all. That tells you a lot of things, but the main thing it tells you is halftime adjustments. Wow. Georgia made some unbelievable halftime adjustments against Oklahoma in that game. I'm having a hard time getting your comments up here again. There we go. I think I got them now. Sorry about that. Took me a minute. Wow, a lot of you guys on here. Thank you. Some unbelievable halftime. Yeah, there we go. I do that every week, don't I? Yeah. Okay. Consistency. You have consistency in me, just like you have in the Georgia Bulldogs. Unbelievable series of plays in the second half. Halftime adjustments, really incredible. I joked with somebody earlier today. I've talked to so many people. The outside interest is palpable in this game, all over the place. Seth, me, Brandon Adams, Jeff Chantel, everybody is taking, receiving, handling all kinds of national interviews, about this. But Georgia's halftime adjustments all year have just been incredible. And I was joking that they must do some voodoo or kill some chickens or something in there at halftime. Kirby downplayed, whatever their second half adjustments were, halftime adjustments. He said they didn't do much other than to say, let's play our brand of ball. I don't think there's any question they were more, hello, Philip Jordan Wells. They were more aggressive in the second half on defense. Jenny Go Dogs Rosie says, keep the main thing the main thing. I hope y'all had the chance to read Seth Emerson's entertaining piece on all the slogans for Georgia this season. Keep chopping wood, keep the main thing the main thing. All those other ones that Kirby likes to whip out. So I'm seeing your comments now, and I'm kind of processing them while I'm talking to you at the same time. There's so much to get to. So all of that, everybody saw the game. It was incredible, double overtime. I'm so happy for Sony Michel. I know a lot of people are, but that fumble that Oklahoma returned for a touchdown that Sony had would have been awful if it ended that way. You could tell afterward. I thought one of the great scenes that was actually pointed out to me after the fact by Jeff Sentell, who was down on the field, was after Sony scored that touchdown. It's the game winner. Game's over. He's walking off the field after all the players they congratulated him and slapped his helmet and all that. There's Garrison Hurst, of all people, on the sideline. He worked with the network and did some things leading up to the game with ESPN. The great All-America tailback who came up and hugged him and talked to him and basically told him that you did everything you could for your school, regardless of how the game turned out, which is true. But it would have been such a shame had that game just ended like it did at that moment, where he had made a fumble and Oklahoma took it and scored. Instead, he got redemption. He finishes with 4 touchdowns, 222 total yards, 181 rushing, 326 between Chubb and Michel. Just an incredible football game. You had interceptions, you had fumble returns, you had 55-yard kicks by Rodrigo Blankenship. Another one, really happy after he had that miss, and it wasn't a bad kick. He got plenty of it. He just pulled it a little bit to come back with double nickels, which is incredible on any level. But to be the longest field goal in Rose Bowl history. Played since 1902, by the way. Just a lot to be happy about. And so that was great. And now that's over. And now the focus turns to Alabama. And Alabama's pretty good, too. There is a narrative out there, which I agree to some extent. Excuse me, get something in my eye here. That Alabama is not as good as Alabama of old or other Alabamas, and the way Alabama has been in this century under Nick Saban. I think it's safe to say that they've had great teams, so it's all relative. But I guess this one's got some flaws, but obviously they weren't able to get to the championship game of the SEC. They lost to Auburn just like Georgia did. Somewhat controversially. It wasn't controversial to me. I thought Alabama belonged in the playoff over Ohio State. Now, I admit, I'm not an SEC homer, but I am from this region, so my view is skewed. And I didn't like my view of Ohio State, and I didn't see Penn State being any more worthy of coming in based on what they've done, and certainly nobody from the Pac-12 deserved to be in the mix, in my opinion. So, I think the committee got it right. Say what you want about Central Florida, UCF. I know they're having their own parades down there in Orlando, and I don't blame them for that. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think Central Florida could beat Georgia or Alabama or Oklahoma. I'm sorry that they don't have the chance to prove that. And I think it's a reason why the playoff is going to have to expand from here where it is. I think it needs more. I think you need to include more. I think 8 teams is perfect. You take the 5 conference champions and then 3 at-larges, which could be either from the smaller conferences who deserve to be in, or those like Alabama was this year who maybe just came up short. You could have a 1-loss team like you had in Alabama every year in every league that might be worthy of getting in. It is a playoff system, though, after all. So, the rules are set forth ahead of time, and those are the rules, and that's the way to do it. Penn Odom says, love the fact that Gus is sitting home watching two teams he won against in the championship game. I bet that's not so fun for Malzahn. I tell you what, before you're too happy about that, I tell you what's going on right now. Gus Malzahn's out there on the road. Well, it's a dead period, I believe, right now. He'll be there this week saying, hey, we beat both those teams, by the way, even though they did lose to Central Florida. No shame in that. UCF was a good team, and that's a no-win situation. But this year and this team, it's all about Kirby Smart. He was got a couple of National Coach of the Year awards. He didn't get the National Coach of the Year award, which there's about 9 to 12 of them, I think. I think I wrote earlier, I think there's 12 in all National Coach of the Year. You know who never gets them? That guy right there, Nick Saban, never gets Coach of the Year awards because he always has the best players. And so now you have the matchup in a dream season of, student versus teacher, protege versus mentor, Kirby Smart against Nick Saban. As I guess everybody knows by now, I don't think I've actually used it in any print form just yet, but Nick Saban is 11-0 against his former assistants as head coaches with an average score of 38-10. Hey, that's fresh for you. Be glad to use it. I just haven't used it just yet in print. And I liked his answer to it when he was asked about it. So we haven't had much media access so far this week. I know y'all think we complain about that all the time. But the bottom line is there's only so much we can bring you until we have a chance to talk to the people and the players and coaches that are involved in the game. And so far we've only had a short teleconference call on January 2nd, the day after the main games. But great answer, I thought, by Nick Saban in that asked about his record against his former assistants. He said, well, they might have the same record had they had my players. And that is true. Austin Kilby here, looks like he might be a Sooner fan. I can't tell. Says, what is your opinion of the surprising running attack from Oklahoma? I mean, I think that's a concern for Georgia coming out of that game and a concern for Georgia going into this game from the standpoint of, Kirby was furious about it. I mean, he talked about it after the game. He talked about it at halftime. He didn't like the tackling. He didn't think anybody should run on Georgia like that. Maybe you shouldn't. But I tell you, they were effective. I was prepared to write, when I thought it was going to be all Oklahoma. I'm getting ready to file that incident analysis that I hit pretty much right at the end of the game, that Baker Mayfield was amazing, and that offense was amazing. And all I could think was, wow, Iowa State, that's the team I'm most impressed with right now. They were the only ones to have beaten Oklahoma before Georgia did. But 54 points, 54-48 is not the Georgia style. It's not the Georgia way. It's not the Alabama way either, and I don't think it'll be the way of this game. I don't think we'll see nearly as much offense in this game. I like Georgia's offense generally better than Alabama's offense. I like Georgia's quarterback better than Alabama's quarterback. I know some Bama fans will take that as some sort of blasphemy. I mean, I think Jalen Hurts is a terrific player. I'm not saying he's just an athlete or anything like that. But just based on what I've seen of him and what I've studied heading into this game, he's just not as strong of a decision maker and passer as Jake Fromm is for Georgia, even though he's a freshman. I mean, Hurts is only a sophomore, and look, Hurts makes great plays. He's a much better athlete. He makes great plays because of his athleticism, and he makes great throws, but he's just not consistent in it. And let me say this. This is Tower's Take after all, so I guess it's okay for me to sit here and wax. I am getting to your questions. I'm making a note, and I'm going to get get to them as much as I can. But the narrative, I use that word a lot, and I'm sorry. Give me another one if you want to be helpful. But the narrative that Jim Chaney and Georgia are somehow scheming around Jake Fromm's limitations because he's a freshman quarterback is the biggest misnomer that there is out there. It's just not true. He is a fantastic player. Jake Fromm is a fantastic quarterback, and he can make all the throws. And here's the thing: he can make all the decisions. And they talk about, well, Georgia runs the ball all the time, so he doesn't have to do that. Here's a perfect example of that young man, Jake Fromm. If you'll recall, it was late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter in the Rose Bowl, and Georgia's facing 3rd and long. I think maybe it was 3rd and 7 or 8 at Oklahoma's 38-yard line. They were in a must-score situation. They were in a shootout. Look, to me, you'll never really know that Georgia had a pass called. You would think they would on the down and distance and situation of 3rd and 7 in the plus area. And Jake Fromm, before he even gets to the line of scrimmage, he spotted Oklahoma and looked like a bit of an unbalanced look. I'm not exactly sure what he saw. That's what I saw on replays. I mean, I certainly didn't see it instantaneously, from the press box. But, and so immediately he starts barking signals, yelling at the lineman, went down the line, made sure all 5 linemen heard what he was saying, took Sony Michel, turns around, tells him to move from the right side to the left side of the backfield, which Sony was already, he was seeing what Jake was seeing and was already in the process of doing. Snaps the football, hands it to him, and Sony Michel runs untouched 38 yards for a touchdown. Now, Sony Michel gets all the credit for that 38-yard touchdown run, and deservedly so. He saw everything that Jake saw. He knew where to go, and he's fast and shifty, and he didn't get touched. But, Jake Fromm, recognized the situation and got him in that play. And Jim Chaney told, Seth and me and everybody else who was talking to him in Los Angeles this past week at the wrestling, he can make all throws. He can knows all plays. That he's remarkable in that regard, and that he can check in and out of anything he wants. Nick Saban drew attention to that as well. That he said, obviously, Nick calls them check with me's, which is an interesting way to call it. They're audibles, and all the great ones are good at it. I don't want to call Jake Fromm Peyton Manning or Drew Brees or Aaron Murray right now or David Green, but the really good ones have, I think, probably the most important thing about playing at a very, very high level, whether it be in college or pro, is the ability to take all this information that they're cramming in your brain and having you watch tape and be able to process it in a quick manner, in the heat of the moment of a game. And so Jake Fromm has the ability to do that. So that's a whole lot on Jake Fromm. Apologies if it's more than you wanted. Melinda Moe pointing out here, in Fromm we trust. And look, there hadn't been a moment too big. Maybe this is it. We've continued to go on and on and on. It started coming off the bench in the first quarter at home. Continued with a road game at Notre Dame, which was huge, and none of us knew then how good either one of those teams were. Turns out they were both pretty darn good. Played great in that game, led Georgia to a comeback win. Got better and better with every week. Was running for his life and getting hit pretty hard against Auburn over there. I don't think that was his fault. Marshall Fleming says, I get tired of those reporters say Jake Fromm does not have a good arm or an average arm. I think his arm is good. Now, it may be, maybe he doesn't throw at miles per hour or whatever they call as hard as some of these other people do. But I tell you what, on 3rd and 10 on Georgia's scoring drive to send the game in the overtime, that 16-yard pass completion, Terry Godwin, go back and look at that. That had something on it. And he, avoided the rush, stepped up in the pocket, and threw a strike hard across the middle that only Terry Godwin could catch for a first down and set up Nick Chubb's game time score. So Anyway, all of that is to say, I don't believe if Georgia's going to lose for any reason, it's not going to be because of quarterback. And maybe this moment will end up being too big for Jake, but Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler were talking about it in a teleconference earlier this week. Says, he doesn't seem to get uncomfortable, and they had a conversation with him the night before the Rose Bowl about that, and he just doesn't. And the way he keeps himself from getting overwhelmed, he said, is by studying really, really hard. So let me try to take some questions. I've gone on and on for a long time here. Jake the Snake, Philip Jordan Wells has. Jonathan Moore says, "We heart Kirby Smart." That's good. Hey, and Kirby, I believe. He's made a believer out of me this year. I think he does a great job. Justin Elijah is checking in from Bainbridge, Georgia, hometown of Kirby Smart. Hey, hello down there in Bainbridge. Did y'all get any snow down there? I couldn't believe so I get back from Los Angeles, and one of the first things I learned is it's snowing in Savannah. And I'm like, what in the world? I just landed from 80 degrees, 78 degree temperatures in California, and here it was snowing in Savannah. Fortunately, none of it here. And boy, it's cold here. And it's going to be cold going into the weekend. But the good news, the championship game will be played in Mercedes-Benz, inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And, man, I'm so excited about it. It's been a great year. I'm exhausted. Seth's exhausted. Daniel Shirley, our editor. I mean, everybody is. But, we press on. These are great. These are great times. We enjoy it, too. Whether you like in my case, you went to Georgia. Certainly I'm an alum, so I love to see them do well. But I cover them from an objective standpoint. But, I mean, if I was covering, say Texas or Oregon or whatever, for another outlet, it's always enjoyable when you get on these runs with teams and it comes with opportunities and things like that. William Lazarus Grace says, Chip, do you feel the defensive game plan will be the same between these two, considering how familiar they are with each other? Yeah, these are mirror images. They kind of come from the same playbook, the same template. No question about that. Now, here's something I would like to propose here. Tell me what you think about it. I think an underplayed angle, and certainly one I'll introduce at some point in all this, is that who do we know that Kirby Smart was not the secret sauce to Nick Saban all along? I mean, after all, he had not had, Nick Saban I'm talking about, the success like he'd had until he got to Alabama. I mean, he had some success at LSU. It was some, very good, won a national championship, and that's where him and Kirby came into contact. But man, all of it. Hey, Pete Ellis, glad you made it. But all of his really big successes come with Kirby as his right-hand man. Now they made the last two national championship games, one with Kirby as his defensive coordinator still, and which they won, and then one without him last year, which they lost. Now they've got a similar situation with Jeremy Pruitt, the former Georgia defensive coordinator who chose to stay with Alabama through the playoffs before he starts his job at Tennessee. All that'll factor in, but I do think, I believe, Kirby Smart. Now, I did not believe him. I think I was always been on record saying that I thought that he would elevate Georgia to some level. And look, nobody likes me to say this, but it's the truth. At this moment, right now, Kirby Smart hasn't done anything that Mark Richt didn't do. I mean, they're the exact same thing. They're 13-1. The only difference is Kirby Smart is in the playoff. Georgia wasn't in the playoff that year. They lost to Florida, and then were edged out. I can't remember who it was. Southern Cal and maybe Miami or something that year, or Ohio State and Miami, or whoever it was. But Georgia just couldn't get in the championship game. And then, Georgia, of course, had that was 2002, 13-1 Sugar Bowl win. 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006 was a little bit down, but then 2007 was up again. You opened 2008, #1 in the country. So the difference will come if Kirby can close the deal here. and I think he can. And I think Georgia's going to win this game. I'm still deciding on a score. I don't want to give you guys a score tonight because I want to break it down a little bit better before I get into that. I mean, but I do think Georgia will win in a lower scoring game, certainly than we saw in Rose Bowl. That's going out on a limb. Now, Mark King, says Kirby is recruiting much better than Rick did. Yes, based on recruiting rankings, but that has to manifest itself on the field. I mean, it's really it's a non-factor. It's a moot point right now. Whatever you're ranked in recruiting, it doesn't matter until you start playing whether that makes a difference. So I agree. The classes that he has recruited are higher generally. I think Rick had one class that was ranked third afterward. And look, Matt Talley says, beg to differ, Chip. Rick was a great recruiter, but never got us a #1 class or into the championship game. Well, A, you would have had a championship game if you'd had a playoff, and B, being #1 in recruiting, that doesn't win anything. You got to win on the field. Now, that said, see, everybody's taking this as, Rick bad, Smart good, or vice versa. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying nothing is different until you win a championship here. And, if and when they win a championship, then that will be different. If they keep it up and go back to the SEC championship next year and 2 more times in the next 5 years, then, that will be the same thing. If they go 4 times in the next 5 years, that will be a little bit better. So, look, I think Georgia's going to win. This started, this entire refrain, within Kirby, I believe. And I think everybody needs to just drop the whole, hate the old guy kind of thing. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I just don't even understand it on any level. Kirby's great. I mean, he is. And I think they'll win the national championship this week. I'm on record saying I think they're going to win the game. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do. You get to this point, my goodness, anything can happen. And Mike Browning points out here, 0 respect from Bama. Fromm can't throw, et cetera, et cetera. That's great. I think Georgia is generally considered the underdog. This they are in Vegas. They opened as 4.5-point underdog, or Alabama's 4.5-point favorite, and it gradually has come down a little bit, I believe. Certainly a lot of money going to Georgia. And what we haven't even talked about here is just the tickets to this game. Unbelievable. Is everybody on here going? Because that is a tough day. That's as tough as I've ever seen for a college game. Tickets $2,000, $3,000 right now. I think they'll come down for the worst seats in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. With truth be known, there's not any really bad seats, but they absolutely can win this. Zach Bowen says, who said Rick was hated? We're going to have to wrap it up here in just a minute. I was just going by the emojis that come by as mad face. It's probably just one guy sitting there beating on his angry face on his keyboard. So I probably and James Nally, I wasn't talking about Mark Rick. I was saying that, nothing, this is exactly what happened 15 years ago so far. The difference was the title. And I think Kirby can get that in Georgia there. And his recruiting has been incredible, and his game day adjustments at halftime have been just phenomenal to witness. Incredible. Really good. So let me wrap it up here. If you got any questions, throw them in here real quick. But they're wrapping me up in Atlanta. Hey, we're going to be in Atlanta this weekend. We'll be all over Atlanta. You're going to see us everywhere. Jeff Sentell, Brandon Adams, me, Seth. Saturday they're going to have the media day downtown. That's going to be a crazy scene. We'll be all over that. I'm about to file something right here, right now. I'm going to turn around when we phase off here and finish writing my Towers take that I'm working on right now. So Thanks for hanging out with me. Thank you to Marco's Pizza. If you haven't tried it, you really should. Just go to marcos.com or call Marco's Pizza near you. You can't miss them. They're all over Atlanta for sure, and even right here in little old Athens. And I will see you guys in Atlanta next, doing a lot of online stuff from a lot of different people. So be sure and tune in then, everybody. And so next time I talk to you, it'll be in hot Atlanta for the national championship game, Georgia and Alabama. Can't wait. See you there.